Genesis 14. In the days of the kings Amraphel of Shinar, Arioch of Elasar, Shedorlamomer of Elam, and Tidal of Goim, they made war on the kings Bera of Sodom, Bersha of Gomorrah, Shinab of Admah, Shemeber of Sheboam, and the king of Bela, that is Zor. The latter kings joined together as allies in the valley of Siddim, which is now the Dead Sea of Salt. 12 years they have served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings were with him attacked and subdued the Rephaim in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, and the Emim in Shaveh Korathim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, as far as El-Paran, which is on the border of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En-Mishpat, which now is Kadesh, and subdued all the countries of the Amalekite, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. Then the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela, that is Zor, went out, and together they joined battle with those kings in the valley of Siddim. When the kings of Chedorlaomer of Elam, Tidal of Goim, Amraphel of Shinar, and Arioch of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of slime or bitumen pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, they fell, were overthrown there, and the remainder of the kings fled to the mountains. The victors took all the wealth of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the supply of provisions and departed. And they also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods away with them. Then one who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, one from the other side, who was living by the oaks or terebinths of Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and of Aner. These were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his nephew had been captured, he armed, led forth the 318 trained servants born in his own house, and pursued the enemy as far as Dan. He divided his forces against them by night, he and his servants, and attacked and routed them and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his kinsman Lot and his possessions, the women also, and the people. After this, Abram returned from the defeat and slaying of Chedorlaomer, and the kings were with him. The king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Sheveh, that is the king's valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, later called Jerusalem, brought out bread and wine for their nourishment. He was the priest of God Most High. And he blessed him and said, Blessed, favored with blessings, made blissful, joyful, be Abram by God Most High, possessor and maker of heaven and earth. And blessed, praised, and glorified be God Most High, who has given your foes into your hand. And Abram gave him 1/10 of all he had taken. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the persons and keep the goods for yourself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand and sworn to the Lord, God Most High, the possessor and maker of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread or a shoelace or anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. Take all, except only what my young men have eaten, and the share of the men allies who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their portion. Genesis 15. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, your abundant compensation, and your reward shall be exceedingly great. And Abram said, Lord God, what can you give me, since I am going on from this world childless, and he who shall be the owner and heir of my house is this steward, Eleazar of Damascus? And Abram continued, Look, you have given me no child, and a servant born in my house is my heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, This man shall not be your heir, but he who shall come from your own body shall be your heir. And he brought him outside his tent into the starlight and said, Look now toward the heavens and count the stars, if you are able to number them. Then he said unto him, So shall your descendants be. And he, Abram, believed in, trusted in, relied on, remained steadfast to the Lord. And he counted it to him as righteousness, right standing with God. And he said to him, I am the same Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldees to give you this land as an inheritance. But he, Abram, said, Lord God, by what shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said to him, Bring to me a heifer 3 years old, a she-goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he brought him all these, and cut them down the middle into halves, and laid each half opposite the other. But the birds he did not divide. And when the birds of prey swooped down upon the carcass, Abram drove them away. When the sun was setting, a deep sleep overcame Abram, and a horror, a terror, a shuddering fear of great darkness assailed and oppressed him. And God said to Abram, Know positively that your descendants will be strangers, dwelling as temporary residents in a land that is not theirs, Egypt, and they will be slaves there and will be afflicted and oppressed for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on that nation whom they will serve, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. And you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old hoary age. And in the 4th generation they, your descendants, shall come back here to Canaan again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full and complete. When the sun had gone down, and a thick darkness had come on, behold, a smoking oven and a flaming torch passed between those pieces. On the same day the Lord made a covenant, promise, pledge with Abram, saying, To your descendants I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, the land of Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Kadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had an Egyptian maid whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, See here, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. I am asking you to have intercourse with my maid. It may be that I can obtain children by her. And Abram listened to and heeded what Sarai said. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her Egyptian maid, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his secondary wife. And he had intercourse with Hagar, and she became pregnant. And when she saw that she was with child, she looked with contempt upon her mistress and despised her. Then Sarai said to Abram, may the responsibility for my wrong and deprivation of rights be upon you. I gave my maid into your bosom, and when she saw that she was with child, I was contemptible and despised in her eyes. May the Lord be the judge between you and me. But Abram said to Sarai, see here, your maid is in your hands and power. Do as you please with her. And when Sarai dealt severely with her, humbling and afflicting her, she, Hagar, fled from her. But the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness on the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, where did you come from? And where are you intending to go? And she said, I am running away from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, go back to your mistress and humbly submit to her control. Also the angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord continued, see now, you are with child, and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael. God hears, because the Lord has heard and paid attention to your affliction. And he, Ishmael, will be as a wild ass among men. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he will live to the east and on the borders of all his kinsmen. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are a God of seeing. For she said, have I not even here in the wilderness looked upon him who sees me and lived? Or have I here also seen the future purposes or designs of him who sees me? Therefore the well was called Ber-lo-ai-rai, a well to the living one who sees me. It is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading and hearing of his word.